For those that are guests, we lost the microphone, okay. For those of you that are guests here that are not a donor or a recipient or a doctor, I don't think you'll have another opportunity like tonight to be in a room surrounded by so many people that have been instrumental not only in saving lives, not only in doing the work of chesed, of helping others, more than anything else, giving people hope and a second chance and the willingness to live. Just a few weeks ago, I was at a dialysis center close by my house in New Jersey. And there were 4 people that I knew from my community that were there that day. And as I saw sitting in a chair, hooked up to a dialysis machine, we should never know from that. And those that have been on that machine know what I'm speaking of. They can only think and hope that one day they'll be able to live without that machine. Having Renewal look after them gives them that hope of life, that they're going to get that phone call that a match has been found, whether it be a family member, an altruistic donor, whoever it might be, because there are many people on that machine that might never come off. And they have the hope, and they have the prayer, and they have the resilience to know that there is an organization that is out there fighting for them as they fight for their lives. In this room we have donors, we have recipients, we have family members that are waiting for that call. We have family members of those that have given and those that have received. We also have the ones that have been able to perform the procedures, the ones that have given the guidance to Renewal. We have Rabbanim here that have given us spiritual guidance. We have physicians here that have given us the medical guidance. And there's no one in this room that on their own level is not a special person. We should all feel honored just by sitting at a table, knowing who we're sitting next to. And if you don't know who you're sitting next to, know that you're sitting next to an angel. Some way, somehow, a person that is making a change in someone else's life. I would like, if you can, please, to watch the screen for a short video presentation, and then we'll let the program begin.
Each and every time I walk through the doors at Cornell, I get a feeling that this is a place that values their patients.
Cornell was phenomenal. They have a great staff, and Dr. Delpizio is one of the top surgeons in the world. If I took off my shirt now, you would never believe that I gave my kidney. The way his precision goes through the belly button and you cannot see a thing. It's truly amazing.
Whenever I walk into Cornell, I feel like I'm going home. It makes me feel very happy. It left a very good feeling in me.
In 2010, I was diagnosed with kidney disease. It was a big shocker since I'm a young man. I think I was 46 at the time. I'm a father of 5 children. My youngest at the time, I think, was 8 years old. It was a shocker because it was a possibility of my kids growing up without me.
5 years I'm on in dialysis. I can't say what's that. I can't say how strong is that. It breaks the body and the soul. Is every morning you don't want to wake up.
When I found out that I have a friend that was going to need dialysis, and they were distraught. And I couldn't imagine why they should be distraught if they're going for dialysis when there's so many people on dialysis and people are alive and well, so I thought. When I saw how devastated they were and how it was the end of the world for them, I said, really, dialysis is so terrible? I started feeling bad for every single person that was on dialysis, and I said, God, you gave me 2 kidneys, I only need 1, let's save somebody from dialysis.
Baruch Hashem, God give me very, very special people, very, very like angels. This is a Renewal organization. You don't want to know who I am. Just because I need kidneys, you want to give me kidneys.
Renewal holds the hand of the donor every step of the way, answering questions and just being there to talk. We accompany the donors on the day of their testing, as well as during the transplant and even the post-op, even visiting them after the transplant.
Renewal staff is remarkable. Compassionate. Not only do they know what they're doing, but they have staff that consists of donors and recipients. What better way to treat patients that are going through a procedure than to have people themselves that have gone through the same procedure?
I wouldn't be able to do it without Renewal. And of course, with the experience of the Cornell Hospital, they made it very easy from beginning till checking out, follow-up and recovery.
My recipient was a 3-year-old, and my kidney really didn't fit. They did a swap, which my kidney went somewhere else. My recipient didn't get my kidney, but he got a kidney. So I don't know where my kidney is.
Professional, knowing exactly what they're doing. They have compassion for the patient, but yet they know exactly what you have to do, and they make sure that you do it.
I was scheduled to go home for Saturday night, and as I was preparing to go home, I really didn't feel well. I was just too weak. I'm getting dressed, and this wonderful nurse walks into my room, and she sees I'm not feeling well, and she says, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going home." She says, "You don't have to." I said, "What do you mean I don't have to?" She says, "You can stay." I said, "I can stay?" She said, "Yes." And I just got myself undressed, went back into bed. I had the best night's sleep ever. I stayed for another day.
My daughter is getting married 6 weeks from now. I'd like to thank my donor. Without her, I don't know if I would be, watching at her wedding. But it's not her alone. It's the people at Renewal, and it's the kidney transplant team at Cornell. Without the combination of all 3, I don't know where I would be today.
Baruch Hashem, today, 4 months after, I feel much, much, much better because of you, Cornell Hospital. Thank you. Thank you whatever you do for me. I'm never going to forget that. All my life I'm going to remember you.
We believe that a donor should not have to wait 3 or 4 hours to get their blood drawn, and Cornell believes that as well. We believe a donor shouldn't have to wait around for half a day in order to have a CAT scan or an MRI, and Cornell agrees. We're proud to partner with Cornell, a hospital at the forefront of transplantation.
All right. I'm doing good, right? Okay. So you can see who our partners are. These are people that we live with on a daily basis. Cornell, we are very fortunate to have found a facility, a hospital, that is on the same path, the same mindset that Renewal's on. Patient first. What can we do to make it easier for your patients? What can we do to facilitate the process. I would like to introduce tonight a man who really needs no introduction. I just wrote something down that I was reading just a few seconds ago, which was really, I could not believe it. He's been listed as the New York's super doctor. Like Superman, he's super doctor. Every year since 2010. He's rated as America's top doctor by the U.S. News World Report. He's the director of transplantation, chief of transplant surgery, a man who is well known by his peers as a leader in what he does. A person that we are very proud to say is someone that we know in a personal level. Please welcome Dr. Kapoor.
Wow, thank you so much for that introduction. I can't say that my staff speaks of me that way. But in all seriousness, watching that video and being here tonight and meeting so many of the people that we have worked with over the years, it really humbles me. And I will tell you, it has been sort of my life's mission to increase opportunities for transplantation to anyone that comes here. And we live in a world, and it's particularly in the United States, where there are some harsh realities. There are so many more people that need a transplant than there are organs available for. And one of the ways to try to increase those opportunities has been to focus on live donation. We know that live donation is safe. There are people here where it is proof of principle that not only does it work, but it works for both the recipient and the donor. And I think when we met Renewal, it's been several years ago. I remember I met Menachem and Mendy. They took me to a kosher Indian restaurant down the street, and we had a discussion about what we could build, and it's been a great relationship. And I think that this organization should be commended. It is a model for other communities. What it has accomplished is almost without comparison. And what they have been able to provide and what they have been able to recognize for people who can look beyond themselves and donate a portion of themselves, there is no higher gift that anyone can provide. So I want to say thank you to Renewal for doing everything that you can. In some ways, in my mind, it is even more important than what we do ourselves. And I think that your community is extremely lucky to have you. So thank you again, and thank you for all of you that came here tonight. And it's been so nice to see all the people that we've worked and helped over the past few years. Thank you very much.
You gotta talk like this. Now it's off. Now we lost it. Anything hit or bumped at all? No. Can you hear me now? No? Not a good Verizon commercial. Okay, we'll talk loud. How's that?
That's brilliant.
Good idea, right? Thank you. I remember back in December 2013, when I came to Cornell for my workup, I guess they call that evaluation, to see if I'm capable of being a kidney donor. By the way, I'm number 26 on the list outside. Count 26 down. That's me. And I came to Cornell, and it's pretty much an all-day procedure. I met Gretchen. Is Gretchen here tonight?
She was.
She was here? Wonderful, wonderful person. Walks you through every step of the way. And one of the people that I met that day was Dr. David Sarur. Now, little did I know that the doctor and myself went to the same yeshiva together when we were little kids. I went to Flatbush Yeshiva, and he asked me, he said, "Didn't you go to Flatbush Yeshiva?" I said, "Yes." I said, "How do you remember?" He goes, "I know you were on the Flatbush Falcons, you were on the basketball team." I said, "You remember?" He goes, "Yeah, you always used to sit on the bench on the end." I said, "You got the right guy, that was me." So then at that point I said, let's cut this conversation short because I don't know what else he's going to say about me. But I want to tell you, this is a man, Dr. Sarur, that treats every patient alike, whether you're Sephardic, Ashkenaz, doesn't make a difference. You're coming in to do a kidney transplant, whether you're a recipient, a donor, a leader in his field, a man that is well known throughout the industry. Just mention his name and people will tip their hat. A person that I can call a friend, call him on a first name basis because we went to school together. Everybody else got to call him doctor. I can call him David. And someone I'd like to introduce to say a few words on behalf of Cornell.
It's working? Working? Okay. Hi. It's no longer working. It's a good thing Dr. Kapoor does the surgery. Okay, thank you very much, AJ. It's a pleasure to be here. And the last time, this kind of gathering reminds me of a Marvel Comics convention, because only in that place do you see this many superheroes like you see here tonight. We always say our donors are superheroes, but our altruistic donors, which is basically the donors from Renewal, are superheroes. So it's great being here. Since I do see one or two people that look a little bit Jewish, let me tell you an old Jewish saying. An old Jewish saying is that when you save one life, you save a whole world. And each of you who donated a kidney saved the whole world, because that person can go on and get married, have children, and their children will have children. So you saved, tons and tons of people. So it's a wonderful thing. Mendy and the people at Renewal are wonderful. And Mendy taught us something very important about kidney donation. In this country, we have, still working? In this country, we have national conferences about kidney donation. We have big meetings of kidney people and transplant surgeons and nephrologists and nurses around the country to try and encourage and figure out how to make more kidneys happen, more kidney transplants happen. And basically, we've failed in making it sprout and grow. The number of transplants per year are about the same. And Mendy has taught us that maybe we're thinking too big. Maybe you really should be thinking local. And Mendy has taught us, and Renewal has taught us, that when you start at the grassroots, at the community level, when there's a community that cares one for the other, you can make transplants happen. And it's Mendy's hope and my hope that he would be able to take this message and this model to many communities around the country. And if they pick up on the Renewal model, I think we'd see no shortage of organs. So thank you very much for the honor of speaking, and I hope you have a good night, and thank you for being here.
I'm not exactly sure why, but I'm sure there's a very valid reason why this big box is by the podium here that he kept on stepping on. Can I move it? Is that okay? Ooh, I only have one kidney. Okay. What's that box doing over here? Okay. If you only have one kidney, don't try doing that at home. How does an organization like Renewal start? You just wake up one day and say, you know what? What can we do today? Pancreas, livers, nah. Let's try kidneys. Kidneys, yeah. Maybe we'll find some people that need kidneys or want to be donors and recipients. We'll put it together to be, we'll turn it into something. I don't think that's the way it begins. You have to be of a special mind, a special type of person, someone that has the eye for chesed, the eye for kindness, an eye looking out for someone else, not thinking about yourself. When I first came to Renewal, like I was a donor, I'm not going to tell my story because you'd never believe it, so we're not going to go down that track right now. But when I first came to Renewal, and I met the staff, I said, these are special people. You think the donors are the superheroes? The donors are only a product. Wow, the mic is working. Wow. Okay. The donors are only a product of what Renewal is putting out. Mendy Reiner, the founder of Renewal, has become not only my boss, but a good friend. Someone that I learned to love, trust, have admiration for. But Mendy, if you ask him, he could not have done this himself. He turned to a friend and a colleague, Sandy Ornstein, and he said, I have a crazy idea. Do you think this would ever work? You think we could put this together? And I must tell you, if Sandy did not push him and say, this can be done, start with one and see what else will happen, Renewal would have never taken off. You need the idea, but you also need someone to partner with you to make it work. Traveling the road by yourself is a lonely road, but when you have someone there with you, banging heads together, rubbing shoulders, saying we could do this. Sandy is the one that was at the forefront. It was Mendy's conception, but the two of them together made Renewal what it is today, where we have over 324, 25, 300 something number transplants that we've done so far. Each one of them has a tremendous hakarat tov to the two of them. And Mendy, who I've really have a tremendous amount of admiration for, has given me a lesson for life. There's nothing that is too big to do. Set your mind out, focus, and you could do just about anything. I'd like to introduce the founder and a man that deserves a standing ovation, Mr. Mendy Reiner.
Good evening, everybody. Standing ovation from a group like this is something that I don't deserve. This is a group of kidney donors. It's kind of, I feel humbled speaking in front of a group like this. A group of people that make miracles happen, a group of people that give life. It's kind of hard to understand, but we all know Hashem, God gives life. But here we're in a room with people that emulate Hashem's work. They give life. Renewal has been around for just a couple of years, and at this point Renewal has grown to become probably the largest altruistic kidney transplant organization in the world, but in the US we're definitely the biggest. We do roughly 20 to 25% of all altruistic kidney transplants in the country. Recently, Duke University reached out to Renewal and invited us down to North Carolina to copy the model in other communities. Because the Renewal model, as we've learned to see, it's not only within the Jewish community, it's based on communities. If you have a firemen's association and someone needs a kidney, people within the firemen's community are going to reach out sooner to donate a kidney to their fellow firemen than the average person in the street. So the model of Renewal can basically be copied throughout the entire country. And if the model is accepted and copied, the waiting list in this country just won't be. So hopefully communities will follow the Renewal footsteps and copy the model and copy the marketing model that Renewal does with each of our recipients, and we'll make the world a better place with healthier people. As AJ has said, I'd like to acknowledge my co-founder, Sandy Orenstein. Sandy, we started out, we said yes. We said if we do one transplant, it will all have been worthwhile. We're doing one transplant a week, and we can do so much more. We can do so much more. We have, unfortunately, many people waiting on our list, and by you kidney donors sharing your stories, going out in shuls, wherever you are, don't be embarrassed. It's not a time to be quiet. Share your story. It's an interesting topic. People always like to listen to this story. When others hear it, they will follow, they will copy. And we always hear it from other kidney donors. Well, I met someone or I read something about a kidney donor who has done it in the past. So please share your stories. I'd also like to acknowledge Rabbi Chaim Steinmetz sitting in the back. The team, our director, as well as our program director, Menachem Friedman. There's a saying at Renewal that they both work 9 to 5, and then 5 to 9 they volunteer. I'm sure all of you kidney donors who've dealt with the staff at Renewal know that Renewal's kidney donor, program director and director are always available, whether it's during business hours or after business hours. And as well, I'd like to acknowledge our kidney donor, in-house kidney donor coordinator, Mrs. Noe, who herself is a kidney donor. And recently, an interesting story happened, a shidduch happened in Renewal. One of the older transplants that happened at Cornell, 82-year-old, I think, from Israel, his grandson, or great-grandson, got engaged to Mrs. Noe's daughter. And being that this transplant team is such a great team, they really fixed up this older gentleman. He's 85 now, but he's planning on flying to New York for the wedding. So that's a beautiful compliment to the staff, to the transplant team, and also for a nice shidduch other than kidney transplants that happen within Renewal. Speaking of transplant teams, we heard from Dr. Kapoor and Dr. Saror. What a great team. The recipient coordinators are great, but tonight is a donors event, so I'd like to point out just a couple of people. Marion Charlton, that's the one who makes things happen. Gretchen, who opens the door for everybody. And most donors choose to stay after she opens the door. And I'd also like to thank Andreas for making the appointments, the blood kits, making everything happen so our donors are comfortable and walk through the process in a very unique and fast way. At Renewal, we love working with Cornell because we feel Cornell has the same approach to kidney transplant as Renewal. We respect our donors, and so does Cornell. There's no reason a kidney donor needs to be dragged through a process of 4 to 5 times coming down to a hospital. Well, at Renewal, it's almost only 4 to 5 hours. At Cornell, I'm sorry, it's only close to 4 to 5 hours. The kidney donor is in at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 2 o'clock, they're on their way home. That is what we call expediting the process, keeping the donors' days off of work to a minimal, and making the transplants happen quicker. And I'd like to thank the entire staff of Cornell for making that happen. Now to the kidney donors. I'm not sure what to call you. Angels, heroes. There's so many different. Every praise in the book should be thrown at you. But I'd like to give you insight of what you've done. A short while ago, a couple of years ago, a kidney recipient stayed at my house from Israel. She's a young 27-year-old with a 7-year-old daughter. And she was post-transplant. It was right before the Passover season, Pesach, and the cleaning was going at our home, was going crazy. And I walked in after she was transplanted, and I walked in, and there she is on my kitchen cabinets cleaning. And I'm like, Molly, you can get down. We have cleaning help. There's no reason for you to do it. And she's like, you don't understand. I'm alive. I'm alive. I'm living. During the Seder, Passover night, she said to my family, my father-in-law, the entire family was there, if you want to understand what being on dialysis means, right before the holiday I planted, it was in April, I planted a beautiful garden of flowers, and I did it on my own. That's my hobby. And she said it would have been impossible to miss it. You can't miss a beautiful garden, but when you're on dialysis, that's all you see is the machine. You don't see any flowers, you don't see any trees, you don't see your children, you don't see life. But what you did for the recipient is one thing, but I'd like to share with you a short story what you do for the family. The 7-year-old went to school with my children while she was here, and as every morning, for those that have children, it's always a challenge to get the children out on time and make the bus. And we were rushing the kids out the door, and her daughter was with it, and her daughter didn't take a coat. So the mother yells after, and they called her Pumpala. Their last name is Pump. Pumpala, you're not cold? The 7-year-old turns around to the mother and says, as long as I have a healthy mother, I am warm. So just know that you're not only making a difference in a recipient's life, you're making a difference in the recipient's children, their parents, their brothers. There's so much life that you're giving. In Cornell, we've seen a beautiful story where a recipient has given up her date of transplant so that a 12-year-old girl can get her slot and be transplanted sooner, and she waited another 2 months for transplant. This is the beauty that happens in this room. And it doesn't happen because the coordination between Renewal and the center is something that you don't see elsewhere. The team understands Renewal. Renewal understands the transplant center. They understand the needs. They trust Renewal, and they trust us that we can test more than one donor at a time for a specific recipient, because they know if this donor is not a match for this recipient, the donor will be matched up with someone else. So again, thank you for the trust you give to Renewal. And I'd like to finish, and I think this is very important, that's always overlooked, is the spouses of donors that need a standing ovation. Without that, that doesn't happen. They deserve a big thank you for making it possible for their spouses to donate. And with that, I'd like to close out with a short introduction. We recently seen a kidney transplant, kidney donor. Where's Stuart? Stuart, coming up here. Yes? Come on, Stuart, we just said the spouses are just as important. So this beautiful kidney donor here was giving a ride, a chesed ride, to one of our other kidney donors in the room, Blimi Brul, back there. And Blimi Brul was telling him her story. And guess what? Here he is, he donated a kidney. But he has never met his recipient before. He does never met his recipient. And with this, I'd like to invite his recipient, Gloria.
The minute I saw him, I knew it.
So this is This is the beautiful story of Renewal, the beautiful story of Cornell. Cornell will advocate for every single recipient, young or old, as we heard before, 83-year-old. And we'd like to move the program on. And maybe we can call the staff of the transplant staff up, as well as Renewal staff for a picture.
Come, Fred. I think they want the doctor and everyone. Nobody else except Gloria.
Sandy?
Come on,
Squeeze in.
Squeeze in. You turn to your side. A little bit. Hey, Baruch, get in here. Oh, forget it.
Thank you, AJ.
Put your name on it. I keep remembering.
What a special moment that was. I noticed that a lot of people in the room have been looking at this clock on the screen and watching it count down. Let me just tell you what that clock's all about. When that clock gets to 0, we will go and pick someone from this crowd that has not been a donor or recipient yet, and you will be the next one to donate your kidney. So we're going to lock all the doors so no one can leave, and keep on watching that clock. Mendy mentioned something in his speech that I think we have to take a little bit of a closer look at. There are 330 million people in America. I think that's including the Mexicans. I don't know, Trump's not involved yet, but we'll see what happens after that. But there's 330 million people in America. 186 of them last year donated their kidneys altruistically. Now just, anybody who's a mathematician, anybody who's in business, take 330 million divided by 186. That's right, 0.00362521 carry over 3. That's the percentage of people that have donated their kidneys altruistically in America. Renewal, a small staff, 7, 8 people, 25% of them were produced by Renewal. Is that a phenomenal statistic? 25%? Now I can tell you something. If we're talking about 330 million people in America, I don't know how many are in Bangladesh, how many are in China, how many are in Germany and Russia. I'm sure there aren't too many altruistic donors over there. So imagine the percentage in the world that this small organization is doing. It's truly a Kiddush Hashem, remarkable about how the people stand up for one another. Mi kamocha amech Yisrael. There's no one like the Jewish people. The work that they do, the care, the love. You don't have the right place to do it, it's not going to get done. Cornell has been phenomenal with us. We enjoy the relationship we have. Whatever we need, whenever there's requests, they're always there to make things easy for us. We thank them for making this night possible, because it would not be possible without them. Imagine if you're an investor and you want to make an investment. You have questions. Should you invest in a stock? Should you buy a hedge fund? Should you buy a ETF fund? What should you buy? Imagine if you had Warren Buffett, someone that you could turn to at the pick of a phone. You have his number on speed dial. Any question that you have, he's there for you all the time. Someone that supports you, someone that wants to see you be successful, someone that's there for you at every turn. We have a Warren Buffett. His name is Rabbi Albaum. I'd like to introduce Rabbi Albaum as someone who's been a supporter of Renewal from day one, someone who we turn to whenever we have difficult questions that we cannot answer, someone that gives us a spiritual guidance, someone that is there for us day after day, no matter what time of the day, what day of the week, it does not make a difference. He is there for us all the time. Rabbi Albaum, please give us a few words of encouragement. Thank you.
Good evening, honored guests, doctors, faculty of Cornell, donors, husbands and wives of donors. I'm not sure why you need a rabbinical advisor here to speak. I can tell you, I was not asked to give any rabbinical advice here tonight, this evening at the conference. A friend, a rabbi that I have in Lakewood, claimed that he heard from a particular rabbi who took a number of his congregants somewhere out hunting to shooting deer. And in fact, they went through the forest and they did notice at a distance some movement, which in fact was deer. So they all shot. And the deer fell. They came closer to the deer, so they began to argue. The rabbi said that I shot the deer. And the two congregants said, no, that we shot the deer. So they brought in a forensic expert who took one look and said, I can clearly see that the rabbi shot the deer. I said, how do you know? Well, can't you see that the bullet went in one ear and not the other? I can tell you that standing here, the truth is I am in awe for a number of reasons. Number one, I have to tell you that I remember when, first of all, the founder of Mendy and a number of the faculty who were at the time came to my house quite a number of years ago regarding to possibly a rabbinical advisor for Renewal. And I have to tell you that I remember thinking that how many transplants are they going to have anyway? And it's an amazing thing that as time went along, I'm informed that by now it is something like over 300 transplants or so. Here alone, I understand when it says 50 in Cornell, I hear it's more than that, maybe closer to 70 and so on and so forth. So here now we are celebrating just what's taking place here in Cornell itself. It's just an amazing thing, and I don't have to tell you, you heard on the video, and certainly those who are donors understand that Renewal is not just a matchmaking service, finding a recipient and a donor, putting them together, but the whole thing like being led by the hand from beginning to end, making it so comfortable, and really unleashing a burden that someone might have in each and every way. It's just an amazing thing. I remember years ago, it was hardly something that one would hear about. It's an unimaginable thing about somebody being ready to have this idea and this notion of really donating a kidney. So finally, as I'm saying, the truth is that Baruch Hashem, we are here at this juncture, but I can tell you very clearly, just for the number of years that I've been together here with the organization, that you'll never find anywhere a more committed and dedicated staff as Renewal, bar none. And in addition to that, clearly we stand in awe for all the wonderful donors, and again, you've heard that more than once, giving a gift of life to unknown strangers many, many times, not just giving to members of the family. They and their families really have been giving a piece of themselves, sacrificed a piece of themselves, just for one altruistic reason, that is called Mekayim Nefesh Achas Yisrael, Kulikiyam Olam Ola, which understand that means saving the life just of one human being. It's considered saving the entire world. And it's very interesting that this week's parsha realized when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created man, created one man at a time. Didn't create 500 people or 1,000 people, one man. And the Gemara comes to tell us in Masechta Sanhedrin why? To tell us the importance of one man. If you have one man in the world, that is the world. And therefore, the Fichach Nivra Adam Yechidi, that's why man was created. One man. So even we may have billions of people in the world, but nevertheless it does not take away the importance and the significance of even the meaning of what one person is. And that's what Renewal is all about. And finally, we stand here again, we stand in awe, with an extreme debt of gratitude, and that is to the unbelievable professionalism, of course, to the staff of the doctors here at Cornell and the hospital faculty. And really, we're very, very thankful for that. And we say that you all be blessed truly with long life, good health, and prosperity, and be able to benefit mankind for many, many more years. It is impossible to overstate what the meaning is of a Jewish life, in Jewish law. The truth is that, today happened to be the yahrzeit of the great Chassam Sofer, who, for those who may not be familiar, and that is one of the greatest authorities in Jewish law, who pointed out, probably the holiest building that you can imagine to build would be the Mishkan, would be the Beis Hamikdash. That is the holiest edifice. It's the house of Hashem. Yet as important and as holy as the Mishkan is, you realize that it's not Doichi Shabbos, does not supersede Shabbos. Shabbos, you cannot build a Mishkan. And yet the Chassam Sofer observes, but if you have a question of saving a Jewish life, that does push away Shabbos, which indicates that the life of a Jewish person is more important than the Beis Hamikdash is. It's more important than the Mishkan is. So if you think about when you go to Eretz Yisrael and you go to the Koisel Marovi, you stand next to the Malka Hamikdash, Bez Hashem and Mashiach will come. We'll to say the Beis Hamikdash, but remember, we are waiting for the Beis Hamikdash, but each and every Jew in this room has more Kedusha, has more holiness than the Beis Hamikdash ever has. And that's what the Chassam Sofer really observes. Not to trouble you, but just to understand just a little bit, the complexities. When we talk about, rabbinical advisor, which we're dealing with kidneys, but in every area, Jewish law really covers the extent of a broad range. There's no area which is in the medical system that is not being addressed somewhere and somehow in rabbinic literature. One of the most frequent issues that come up, and it is able to come up sometimes even issues with nephrology, dealing with kidneys as well. And that is, just to give you just an idea of the complexities, you have many times a terminal patient. You have to have a terminal patient, which means that the way it looks like now, we're talking about according to the natural events, we figure that the patient, let's say, has 6 months to live. Let's say has 6 months to live. So the doctors come up, let's say, and they have a particular experimental type of a surgery that may extend the life of this person, let's say, up to a year. However, it may kill him immediately. In other words, the operation is risky. If you do nothing, he has 6 months. If you do something, you may extend his life, but on the other hand, it may shorten his life. So what do? The question is, are you permitted to sacrifice that which is a certainty, which means that he has the 6 months, which is a certainty? Are you allowed to risk that for the possibility of longer life, of extending that? And the halach is you are allowed to, because every day of life has so much importance, so much significance, that even if it might be risky by having an operation which may even shorten his life, but the remote possibility remote possibility that will give the opportunity, probably even to extend the life, we will risk the definite 6 months for a possibility of lengthening. In the way the terminology in the Lamdish world it's called that we sacrifice Vadai Chai Yeshua, the definite of Chai Yeshua is called 6 months for a Sofik Chai Olam, to give him something like a year and so on and so forth. That's just one of the example of many, many things. Many times you have Hatzolah running on a Shabbos to save a life, which of course not only is permitted, it's a mitzvah to do that. What happens very often is that they are not needed. They're needed for a number of reasons. Either the patient passed away by the time they arrived, or maybe somebody else was there before them. So you have 5 guys, right, that also were Machal Shabbos. The loch is, no, they get a mitzvah. Even at the end, their services were not needed. Because when they went for the right reason. They went in order to address a possible problem, and that is the opportunity of saving a life. So even for some unknown reason, something happened and changed, which they were not able actually to do so to be successful, they get schar. The Shulchan Aruch says they get a schar, the schar remains ki ilu mamish mamish, they saved a life. That gives us a little bit just of an understanding again of the tremendous cheshivas, what it means, and certainly when it comes to giving a kidney. As a matter of fact, I just have to tell you, historically speaking, in the rabbinic literature, it was not such a simple heter. If you go back, go earlier, you have in the Yabi Yomer, Rav Ovadia Yosef, and you have the Minchas Yitzchak. There was earlier times it was considered to be a Sofik Sakona, giving up his kidney. That was the understanding. That would then, of course, even today, it's only because the Kodesh Baruch Hu stands by the side, but it's acceptable. Years ago, to give up a kidney, even though we know you can live with 1 kidney, obviously, Baruch Hashem, but nevertheless, we consider to be entering yourself in a sakona. And there's a big shaila: am I allowed to put myself in a Sofik sakona to save someone from a vadai sakona? And there are many opinions that you cannot do that. But Baruch Hashem, as time went along and he saw the success of these type of operations, the Baruch Hashem, they're so successful, so it is permitted across the board, and it's a very choshev thing. I just want you to understand, and just because it's so fascinating, the significance and the great thing that's being done when you give up a kidney. There's a truest Radbaz, and I'm saying it because you probably will not hear it again, because it is so fascinating. We're talking about in Muslim countries, Radbaz, that for over 500 years ago, and the Arizal was a Talmud of the Radbaz. He was a Rav in Mitzrayim. And the question is, the Muslim government had captured a Jew. They captured a Jew, and he was destined to be executed. But for some interesting reason, they decided to tease the Jewish community, and they said, you know what, we're going to release him on one condition. If there's any Jew out there who's willing to give up his arm, unrelated to any reason, if any Jew is willing to give up his arm, allowed to amputate his arm, we're going to free the Jew. The great shaila was, Pekuach Nefesh, are we mechuyev? Is there a Yid out there who is mechuyev? Is he obligated to give up his arm to save another Yid? After all, you could live minus an arm. And here's a question: saving the life of a Yid. Are you mechuyev al pi halacha? Are you obligated to give up that arm? And Radbaz says, no, you're not obligated. Why? And it's just an incredible reason that he gave us, without citing a source. Because the Torah, he said, Rocher darchi noyim, the midst of the Torah is given in a pleasant way. It does not, he says, logic that the Torah would require a person to take away an aver of his, to take away a limb, even means to save another life. You don't have to, but then he says, but if you do it, it's a tremendous, tremendous mitzvah. So here you just understand, we're talking about giving up an aver, giving up something like a kidney, a tremendous, tremendous mitzvah in light of what Radbaz says. So let me just conclude with the following. And most of you have heard about Reb Chaim Kanievsky. He's the greatest authorities today in Eretz Yisrael. The situation that took place many years ago, and that was a very interesting Torah that took place in front of him. He was asked the shaila. There was a chos and a kala. They were engaged, ready to get married, and before the chas and before the wedding, it turns out that the chosin developed a very serious illness. Very serious illness, very dangerous illness. As a result, the parents of the kala, the parents of the bride, they wanted to dissolve the marriage, and you can't blame them. We found out before the wedding. Why should we go through with it? It's a very serious chosin over here. And they almost broke it, but then very interesting is that the chosin kala said, we also have something to say about it. So the chosin says like this: if it's up to me, I believe we should break the shidduch. Why? It's not fair for the kala. Here it shows when somebody cares about somebody else. It's not fair for the kala that she has to deal with me going into a marriage, knowing from the start everything that you have to go through, there'll be a lot of treatments, and who knows at the end how successful we're going to be. So the Chazan suggested to break up the shidduch. The Kal, on the other hand, says, I don't want to break up the shidduch. He says, is he not going through enough? The fact that now he's been diagnosed with this very serious sickness, and who knows, there's a long road to recovery, if ever. I don't want to add to the pain and to the suffering of the Chosn. So she insists they do get married. The Chosn, for the sake of the Kala, says, no, we should not get married. What do they do? Who's right? Or is there anybody right? Is there a right? Is there a wrong over here? So they went to Reb Chaim Kanievsky. Actually, they went to one of the Rebbes, and the Rebbe says, I can't answer it. Go ask Reb Chaim. Reb Chaim says the following. The Medrash tells us that there was a king, and I'm shortening because it's maybe 2 minutes. There was a king called the Melech Katsya. It was very weird, somewhere far, far off. It's in Parshas Noach, the Medrash. It's in Hare Choshech, somewhere far, far. And he also was a decider, acted like a judge. In other words, the community issues came to him. Community issues came to him. The Medrash tells a story. What happened was, you have two people. Someone who sold a piece of property, and someone bought it. Okay, let's call them Reuven and Shimon. Reuven sold a piece of property. Shimon buys it, all right? Shimon buys it, now it's his field. He goes in, he digs in the field, and he finds a great treasure. Tremendous treasure. So Shimon, being a very extremely honest person, Shimon goes to Reuven and says, listen, the treasure belongs to you. I only bought the field. No one was aware there's a treasure there. And therefore the treasure should go back to you. And Reuven said, no! I sold you the field fair and square. It belongs to you. So now the treasure belongs to you. So here is each one fight this and opposite in Torah. You buy the Torah, everybody says it's mine. Here it says it's mine. Here they're saying it's yours, and he's saying it's yours. So who gets the treasure? So the Medrash says what the king says the following. He asked Reuven, said, do you have a son? He said, yes. He asked the other one, the buyer, do you have a daughter? Yes. Let them get married and give the treasure to them. There was Alexander Mugdan happened to be there, and he was very surprised at that psak. The king said to Alexander, what would you do? Me, I would kill them both and take the treasure for myself. And Reb Chaim said, very advisedly, in observing, so why does the Medrash tell us a story? Medrash tells us a story that has to be some redeeming value in the story. Why do I have to know this story? What you learn from this Medrash is that when you have two people who are not selfish about their own needs, they care more about the other. He says the treasure belongs to him. He said the treasure belongs to the other. Then what the Medrash is teaching us, when you're ready to sacrifice for somebody else, you don't lose. You don't lose, you only gain. Both are going to gain. You can get married, you give a treasure to them. So Reb Chaim, this is a unusual situation. The Kala worries about the Chosen. She wants to go through with the Shidduch. The Chosen worries about the Kala. It's better to drop the Shidduch. You have here two situations where everybody is dropping their own interests and really concentrating more about the other. You can't lose, said Reb Chaim. Both stand to gain. And that's why he said, gave his blessing to the Shidduch Mavi. He went to the Chassan and he danced extra, extra long, which is very unusual for Reb Chaim. So I just want to know that you realize that Kodesh Baruch Hu should be really gebenched, truthfully, because it's a tremendous, tremendous sacrifice. And now, just like at the end of the Yom Noraim season, we shall all be Zoichet to a Gemar Toiv, gebenched werden with all that we need, all our tefillah should be in his kabel, Yimal Hashem, Kol Mishal, Kol Matov, we should only meet on good occasion, Meher V'Menu, Amen.
Very difficult to follow the rabbi. Very difficult to follow his level of. Many people approach me knowing that I'm a kidney donor, and they ask, anything different? Are you limited to the food you could eat? Are there things you can't do anymore that you were able to do before? Do you act differently? Do you feel different? And we're in a room here today, as we mentioned many times, a room that's full of donors and recipients. And the question is, for someone that's not a donor or recipient, can you really tell the difference who is who? And the answer is obviously yes. The recipients and the donors are sitting back, they're relaxing, they're enjoying the evening. Everyone else is watching the clock. Are they going to pick me? So those guys are a little bit sweaty. So if you want to know who is not a donor recipient, see who's starting to get a little sweat on their brow. Not looking at you guys, don't worry, you're all right. Our next speaker, as far as I know, is our last speaker, according to the chart that I have, my napkin. Someone that's not from these parts. A man, a rabbi, a Bashoshan from Arizona, who, if you want to know, did he have his transplant here in Cornell? The answer is yes and no. He's what is called a backdoor Cornell transplant. He has a remarkable story, something that you will really find inspiring, and a story that will lead us all to believe that when you want to get something done, you will get it done. Please listen and give a warm welcome to Rabbi Shoshan, who's going to give us his beautiful story from Arizona, a kidney donor, and a very, very special person.
There's generally a rule about the ratio of distance that one travels to the length of his speech. And from the further you come from far away, there's an expectation that you'll speak a long time. I come from about 2,500 miles away in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I asked Rabbi Friedman before, when he invited me to come here, how long I should speak for. And he said, or whatever. And then I tried to push him, and he said 10 minutes. We've got problems. Yeah.
Better cut it down.
AJ, gonna do my best. Birshus Rabbi Olbaum and Rabbi Zuibel, honored rabbis and community leaders, the chiefs and directors of this world-renowned medical facility, staff and supporters, and friends of Renewal, kidney donors and recipients, and as the aforementioned heroes, the kidney donors. This is an evening to celebrate matches. These are matches that have been provided by God, by Hashem Yisbarach. It's an evening in which we have come together to celebrate one particular match, that of the hospital and the organization, but really it celebrates 70 others. My own kidney story begins about 3 years ago, a little bit more than 3 years ago, and it begins with one individual person. He's a colleague and friend of mine. His name is Rabbi Elimelech Adler. He comes from Brooklyn. Maybe some of you know his parents, Yankee and Ella Adler. And he lives in my community. One of our synagogue members, I serve as the rabbi of a shul. One of our synagogue members was diagnosed for basically his entire life. He's been diagnosed with kidney failure, with kidney disease. And this man, who suffered in different ways for decades, was ultimately going to have to go on dialysis. And it was Rabbi Adler who stepped forward and said that he would donate his kidney. I didn't think about it. I didn't consider it. It was the last thing in my mind. It was good news there was a donor, and it was further good news that it wasn't going to be me. But alas, Rabbi Adler went through all of the testing at Mayo Hospital, Mayo Clinic Hospital. Some of you, I'm sure, know of Mayo in Rochester, Minnesota, but they also have facilities in Jacksonville, Florida, and Phoenix, Arizona. And so he was tested in Mayo Hospital, and he was approved initially as a direct match with our recipient, Neil. But in the last moment, Rabbi Adler called me one day and he said, I'm calling you to tell you that I just got a call from the donor coordinator in Mayo, and because my kidneys are both served by 2 renal arteries, they will not perform the surgery. I'm calling you before I call Neil and Felice, because I'm calling you before Neil and Felice are called by the hospital, because I know that they're going to call you heartbroken. And sure enough, an hour passed and they called me, and of course, their hearts were broken. Neil had not yet started dialysis, but he had to, and we had no donor. So what did I do that day? I picked up the phone and I called 2 fellows who had in the earlier process said, yeah, they would be willing to be tested. And I really cannot tell you why I, who am so afraid of even a regular blood test that when I was engaged to be married or before I was engaged, I did not want to have the Dor Yesharim test. And we'll return to this story, but I have an identical twin brother. I went through the process of finding out that my twin brother and I are definitely identical. We went through the medical records of Evanston Hospital, and we went and got those records so that I would not have to have a blood test. You are looking at a coward, my friends. Somebody who walks in to every blood test and says, I need you to know that I'm not going to faint, but I'm one of those. So I don't know why, but when I called two other fellows right away, I said to myself, maybe it should be me. I think I can do it. I had already researched the halachic question on behalf of Rabbi Adler months earlier, and I still do not know why to this day, but I decided to be tested. And I was tested in May of 2012 in Mayo Clinic Hospital in Phoenix, Arizona, and I was told that Neil and I were not a direct match, but that I seemed to be a good candidate for being a donor, and therefore I should come in for what they call there the $1 million workup. I should come in and be tested. It is 4 or 5 days, my friends, over there, but we do everything a little bit slower in Arizona than New York. So I went in for several days with the support of my wife, with the support of my mother, with the support of my brother, because I felt I needed his permission. Because as I'm sure all of you know, identical twins are pre-qualified donors one to the next. And so he said, no problem. He said, in fact, later on when I met with Renewal, he said, if they find that you are a good match for somebody else, tell them you've got another one. I wonder how long it's going to take Rabbi Friedman to make that phone call. And so I went with the blessing of my family to be tested, and I was tested, and we entered into their paired match donor system. The Mayo Hospital works with its other two hospitals. Today, now they work with many other hospitals, and they create chains where it was mentioned in the video, where my kidney would be going to somebody else, and then that person's donor would be transplanted into Neil, and Neil would have the kidney that he needed. But it's not so simple. Every time there was an almost a pair, almost to this, almost to that, yeah, we've got 4, 5, 6, we're just trying to find, no, it didn't work out, it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And months passed. From May became June, and June became July, August, and I called Renewal. And I decided we should get onto Renewal's list, because maybe they have a way of matching us. But this is really why it's such a pleasure for me to come here tonight and speak to you. Because Menachem Friedman, whom I do not think has any particular medical training, looked at the facts that we sent and said, there seems to be an error here. Why won't they transplant you? You are a direct match. The allergen, their interpretation of the allergens is incorrect. We're talking about Mayo Hospital and a guy from Lakewood. And Reb Menachem, he insisted, you are a direct match. I want you to come to New York. And if you come to New York, we have a relationship with Cornell Hospital. And if you come to New York, we'll get you in, we'll get you out, and we'll get you transplanted in New York. We're going to get to the bottom of this. Well, that brings me to the most important match of all, which is the match between Renewal and this world-class medical facility. We showed up here in September of 2012 with the encouragement of Rabbi Friedman, with the leadership of Rabbi Steinmetz, with the efficiency of the aforementioned Miss Gretchen Bretzlaff, who was just spectacular, as it was said earlier. Who wouldn't want to come back? And with the direct stewardship of Dr. Sarur. And one half of a day changed everything. And as those of you who've been through the recipient side perhaps know, it was good it took only half a day, because we were able to go from dialysis treatment near the airport in Phoenix to the airport, fly to New York, and get back in time for dialysis. That's all the window we had. So we had the surgery at home. And the reason we had the surgery at home is because it wasn't more than a day that Ms. Bretzlev called and said, we'd like to schedule your surgery here. There's a deeper way of looking at these allergens, a higher definition analysis, and you don't come up as a problem. We can schedule it for a given date. I don't remember what the date was. We challenged Mayo Hospital, and we asked them to retest. Not only did they retest, not only were our surgeries on October 16th, almost exactly 3 years ago today, but they changed their protocols, as the system-wide protocol for how they test for allergens, as a result of Renewal, as a result of Rabbi Friedman's insistence. That's the impact you have. That's far beyond this room. Renewal further came to our surgeries. It was on Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan. We had a minyan early in the morning. I can't believe that it's not the only minyan ever in the history of Mayo Hospital in Phoenix. 2 Shmona Esreis, Shachris and Musaf. And they were there at every turn. They gave us things that the hospital didn't give us, binding belts. They gave us opportunities to follow up and be a part of a community of donors and recipients and be there for others over the last 3 years. And so I want to say thank you to Renewal. Thank you to Rabbi Friedman and Rabbi Steinmetz, to Dr. Sarur, to the coordinator, Ms. Bretzlev, to the founders, to the donors. When I say donors here, I mean the financial supporters, because without you, it is also impossible. Thank you to the august assembly of medical professionals that are here in this room. You have not gotten enough credit tonight. Without you, we couldn't possibly do it. To the doctors and to the nurses, to the coordinators and the schedulers and the staff and the follow-up nurses in this portion of the by the recipients and by the donors and so on and so forth, we applaud all of you. Thank you for the life-saving work that you do. And lastly, thank God. Thank you, God, for these matches made in heaven. The 70 you celebrate here tonight, the 330 that you should celebrate, and the one special relationship that you celebrate here tonight. The Master of the universe has provided it all, and to him we all have our thanks.
Well, he's good. He was very good. He makes me look bad. Okay, in case you haven't noticed, the clock is no longer there. We have removed one person from the room so far. Those of you that are still here, we might need another, but looks like so far we're good. We heard some screaming in the back. They're being sedated at this point, and everything will be okay. I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. Really a truly remarkable evening. The doctors, the nurses, the professionals, the specialists, the Rebbeim that have come, the donors, the recipients, our guests, the Renewal staff. A night like this is something to be remembered. If you're here, you should know that you are special, that you're one of a kind, and that Hashem will bless everyone here with good health, long life, tremendous beracha, shefa, hadbi ledai, and we all merit to see the coming of the Mashiach. Amen. Thank you.